So originally I was thinking about putting, I've got a lot of bicycle inner tubes, and I need some vibration reduction because this steel frame is basically just a giant reverberating machine for machinery to make a lot of noise off of. And I do have the rubber feet to mitigate some of that against the cement floor, but I want something between the tabletop and the frame. And this was originally how I was going to do it. I was going to glue down this inner tube to the frame. But now I'm thinking this is it's a difficult process what I'm trying to do. And it'll be much easier to just affix the inner tube to the tabletop on the underside of the tabletop and let that carry it, because I could just staple it in instead of having to worry about gluing it. So that's what I'm going to do. Thankfully this is a workbench and not for a client. So several things have come to light here that once mating these two things together. The underside is still full of contact paper or whatever that stuff is for flooring, which I don't really care to remove because it's a pain and I'm not going to see it, and maybe it'll help with the sound dampening, the vibrations that I was talking about earlier. But we have more realistic issues. The frame itself, now that it's on the tabletop is straight, the frame is not. If you look at the end where that bar ends, and then you look over here, and it's off by about 1 inch. And I checked the square, and it is out of square. The entire frame is out of square. So it's the same thing on this end. You can see that it's very obvious, out of square. However, it does appear that everything is mostly parallel, so there is that. The other problem is, remember I was talking about that 27 inches and it got busted down to, I don't know, 26 and a quarter or something for the tabletop. Now I've got this overhang. So it's either going to be overhang on one end or both sides are going to have overhang. So I've decided that I'm going to just true up the front side, and then the back side is going to have the overhang. So this is becoming a Frankenstein project in my mind, as far as it's not exactly the way that I put it together. I think part of this has to do with the tubing to join the two sides of this together. I was more concerned with getting as much tubing length out of it as possible because they were only so long, and I didn't go ahead and double check the measurement of the tabletop. And so inadvertently I extended the width of the entire frame based on the maximum that I thought I could get out of that tubing. So it's in progress, but not going to plan. But I guess for a workbench it's not that critical. It just needs to be sturdy and functional.
So YouTube, Google, what? I know. Out of the box thinking, laminate some whiteboard.
So I've got the thickness planer on top of the table, the tabletop, the bamboo tabletop, pushing down on top of the frame so that I can make sure that it's compressed with the bicycle inner tubes. Now it's time to start attaching the frame. decided that gluing on the upper shelf was the easiest way to go since I couldn't readily get screws in easily. So even though nothing else except for the tabletop is glued on this entire project, that was the way I went with it. But you can still see the gap there, and then you can also see it, well, maybe not on this side. You can see it right there too. So as I pointed out before, the steel frame is not square, and because it's not square, the shelf, parts of the shelf don't meet up exactly. But I'm not really worried about it. It'll be stable enough for me to put tools on and everything, and it is just for me. The overall look is good. I like the silver. I think that it'll brighten up the lower areas since usually near the floor is dark. So now it's time to prepare this mess of metal and buckets and everything here, because that is where this workbench is going. Here's how I have it set up right now. I don't know if this is how it's going to stay, but I'm thinking that the grinder buffer and my sander here, I think I'm going to put this on a wheel so that I can spin it around one or the other. I'm never going to use both at the same time. That way it'll utilize the width here. I'm finally glad I get to put this big 12-inch jet sander. I found that on the streets of Brooklyn. So Jimmy DiResta is not the only person to find awesome tools on the streets of New York. The belt sander I have didn't fit on the shelf. That's okay. I still have plenty of shelf space. I might build a drawer into there since I've got a lot of height. Same thing up here. I might just put in like a little box or a drawer to put in some sandpaper stuff. But right now, you know, the two grinders I have, and my and whatever the hell this thing is, because I can't remember. Jigsaw. The jigsaw. Yeah, you can tell I've been doing this a while. The jigsaw fits up there. Overall, it's functional. It just barely fits into the space. You can see the drainage pipe I didn't realize was crooked. So I've got a little bit less room at the back than I do at the front. And you can see the elevated pad there. And then it literally just fits. I don't know if you can see the foot there, but it is just barely on there. And actually the rear one is sort of halfway off. But I use the maximum amount of space to get this thing and get it set up. And I like it. It's functional. That's what I needed. And now that frees up some space over here. So this debacle, which used to be my lathe table, can be cleaned up because I had the sander right here and I had the drill press right here. So now this gives me some more room to actually reorganize and get this space functional. So little by little, this shop is coming together. Thanks for watching.